All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I have for you guys today, let's do a little bit of a New York Pro preview just because we're a couple days away now from the 2021 New York Pro and the next qualifier for the 2021 Mr. Olympia. So this is going to be a very stacked lineup. It's going to be a very tight competition. A lot of big names doing this show. One of them is Hassan Mustafa. Now, we've got some recent physique updates, some actual posing videos from Hassan Mustafa. So these most recent ones, these ones right here, are the ones that I believe are the most up-to-date and the most accurate representation of how Hassan is looking. These were posted on Stan McQuay's Instagram story just last night. Now, to me, Hassan looks a lot better in these updates than in some of the other pictures and videos that he had been posting recently. He looks harder and a little bit more grainy in these updates. And I don't know if there was a sharpened filter or not on these stories because it does kind of look a little weird in places, but he does look sharper in these videos. And he looks a little bit more dangerous in these videos than some of the other ones that we saw. So he's posing for Flex Lewis and Stan McKay, and they both seem to be pretty impressed. And again, assuming Hassan comes in shape, I would still say he's one of the front runners in the conversation for winning this show. Now, he did compete at last year's New York Pro where he took 4th place, and I think his conditioning was off last year, and that's what led to that 4th place placing. And again, if he brings good conditioning this time around, who knows what could happen? He could be in the conversation to win it. So last year was the year that Ian won the New York Pro. So Ian Vier won the show. Justin Rodriguez took 2nd, and in 3rd place you had John De La Rosa. So all the guys that placed ahead of Hassan last year, aside from Justin, are not going to be here this year. So based on these updates, and this one that you're watching here is the one of Hassan posing with Flex Wheeler, I think this is a little bit older than the video that we just showed you from Stan McKay's Instagram story. So I think he looks a little bit better in the more recent one. I still think he's going to be a top contender, probably first call out at the New York Pro, probably top 3 at the New York Pro would be my prediction. But I got to say, I think with the impressive win at the Indy Pro, Justin Rodriguez has put himself in a prime position for him to now be the front runner to win this show. So Justin Rodriguez put himself in a prime position. He just won the Indy Pro. He's got a ton of momentum. He beat Blessing. He beat Muhammad. It was a decent lineup, and he won. So it gives him some really good gas going into this show. And again, you combine that with the fact that last year, Justin beat Hassan at this same show. Even though Justin didn't win, he took 2nd last year. Hassan took 4th. So he beat Hassan last year by 2 placings. And this time he's coming into the show fresh off of a win the week prior. I think Justin really has to be in the conversation as one of the favorites now. And again, I think it's going to really come down to conditioning. Hassan at 100% condition versus Justin at 100% condition. I think Hassan wins. But it's a question of who's going to be in better shape. And based on these 2 physique updates that Justin posted at just days out from the New York Pro, he said these are the last updates he's going to post. He looks like he's in phenomenal shape. He looks like he's going to have no problem carrying over the same shape that he had at the Indy or better based on the physique updates that he's been posting afterwards. So I think Justin is looking very dangerous, and he's poised to win. I mean, he's been runner-up at a lot of really big shows. This was his first pro win in 5 years at the Indy Pro. So I think right now he's probably at the all-time peak of his danger as a men's open competitor. I think Justin is as dangerous as he's ever been right now. So like I said, we've got all this talk about Blessing. We've got all this talk about Nick Walker. We've got all this talk about Hassan because Hassan, he is a mass monster. He's a freak. But I really think Justin could just be the sleeper here to win the show based on what we saw at the Indy Pro. It's really hard to predict, and it's really all just a guess at the end of the day when you're predicting a bodybuilding show because it's so subjective. But I would predict the top 3 would likely be Nick Walker, Justin, and Hassan Mustafa. I think would be the top 3 comparison. Let me know what your predictions would be in the comment section below. Who do you have winning the New York Pro? Who's your top 3? Let me know down below. And now a word from our sponsors over at Labrada Nutrition. Come on. All right, so next up in the news, I did want to briefly show the full competitor list for the New York Pro. They just came out with the scorecards for the New York Pro, so I don't think anybody new is going to be making a last-minute jump into the show. I know a lot of people thought, I kind of heard a rumor that Akeem might jump into the show. I've heard that from a couple different people. But we do have the quote-unquote official scorecards of who supposedly is going to be there. So Morgan Asti, Blessing Awodabu, Camilo Diaz, Muhammad El Imam, who just took second place at the Indy Pro. You got Roy Evans, Dorian Haywood, who just took fourth place at the Indy, Hassan Mustafa, who took fourth place at the New York Pro last year, Justin Rodriguez, who just won the Indy. Sean Smith is still on that list, but as you guys know, he made that Instagram post saying he's not competing at all, so I don't think Sean is doing it. So I guess this list could change if there were some last-minute entries. And then Nick Walker, who's made his pro debut at the Chicago Pro last year, taking fourth place in a very stacked lineup at that Chicago Pro. So that's your official New York Pro list. Not as many competitors as there were last year. There's only 11 guys on that list, and we know that one of them is not doing it, Sean Smith, so about 10 guys in the lineup. So if this is the whole list, it looks like everyone is guaranteed to be top 10 in men's open bodybuilding. So let's go ahead and show the latest physique update / training video from Nick Walker. So this was posted today, just 1 hour ago. He says this is the last shoulder workout in the books with Matt Jansen, 4 days out. So 4 days out is a pretty key number here because all these updates that I've showed you of Hassan and Justin, I believe they were both 4 days out. I know Hassan's was. So we're getting really, really close to the New York Pro. There's not going to be a lot much more to talk about until the actual day of the show, and then we're just going to have to see what happens. We've done all the talking. We've done all the speculation. We've seen all the physique updates. We saw the preview at the Indy Pro. We kind of have an idea of where Blessing's at. We now have an idea of where Justin is at, and we now have a little bit of a better gauge of how this New York show might go. And I'm thinking Justin stands some really good odds of being just right there in the mix of the top three. And I'm really excited to see what Nick brings as well. I mean, Nick could be a game changer too. I mean, Nick, he did take fourth at his pro debut in Chicago last year, but it was a very stacked lineup. It was a very difficult lineup. He was against some seasoned pros, so that was a good placing for your pro debut. Nick could come in and look very similar to how he looked in Chicago and maybe get a mediocre placing, or Nick could come in with way better conditioning than he had in Chicago, blow that physique away, and he could come in and just look like a world beater and completely destroy this lineup and win the show. So Nick is kind of like a wild card for me because with the size that he's got, with the freak factor that he's got, if he's able to bring condition, crazy condition, better condition than he had in Chicago last year, I think he could win the whole show. But again, it all just depends. It's also subjective. Anything could happen. I guess we'll see. But speaking of good shape, two guys that are in really good shape are going to be the last two stories. Max Charles posted a physique update, and he has hashtag 2021 on the caption, on the comments of that physique update. So I'm assuming it is a recent one, at least taken this year. Max Charles has not announced what his next show is going to be, but based on this physique update, he looks like he's in extremely good shape. So could we be seeing Max Charles compete in the very near future? Maybe the New York Pro, maybe the Cali Pro, maybe Tampa, maybe Toronto, maybe Chicago. There's a lot of shows this summer, and I, for one, am excited to see it. But Max looks like he might be getting ready for a show sometime soon. And another guy, we just talked about this as well in the last video, Patrick Moore. Patrick is looking super ripped. I'm telling you guys, with all these shows coming up in the very near future, when you start to see some of these guys that haven't announced their next show, and they start posting a ton of physique updates, and they're looking lean and they're looking sharp, don't be surprised if you see them compete all of a sudden without making a bunch of announcements or letting people know that they're doing the show. So don't be surprised if we see both Patrick and Max up on stage in the near future. So that's going to wrap it up for the video today, guys. It's my birthday today, so I'm about to go eat some dinner. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please give it a thumbs up if you did. Subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed yet already. As always, I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out.